Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Sunday night. Believe that. October 4th, 2020. This is your NXT TAKEOVER 31 pay-per-view recap and review. I am Don Tony, thanking you for tuning in. By the way, if you see some red over here, don't adjust your screen. I don't know. I've actually been a little bit itchy over here tonight. So there's a little bit of redness. I don't want anybody to think I don't have COVID. I don't have allergies. But, man, talk about an awesome pay-per-view. 5 matches. 5. I mean, I guess maybe the only negative thing about it is we only probably need a half an hour, 45 minutes to talk about it. I'll tell you this much. You know, been doing this since 1997. And when I always cover pay-per-views, and think about it, back in 97, you still had the in-your-house pay-per-views that were pretty short. And whenever I would give results, I would always tell you my favorite match in a night and my least favorite match in a night. I tell you, just on the fly right now, I don't know what would be my least favorite match in a night. I mean, Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly, I was browsing social media as the match was going down, and you know, you got your usual suspects cracking jokes, and this is the only way they can get attention now. It's not your quintessential, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but it's not your AEW type match. This was more maybe a match you'd see in New Japan, very physical, told a beautiful story in the ring. Really hardcore technical wrestling, you know, just stiff. It delivered. This pay-per-view had everything. High flying, great psychology. I don't care how you feel about Velveteen Dream. Psychology that was told in that match, the story that was told was beautiful. Very loud, very vocal. You hear me and you see me on other shows, especially when we cover Raw. And I'm sorry for always bringing up this guy because I like him, but I always use the example, Humberto Carrillo. Humberto Carrillo. And I'll never forget when in storyline, they took his head, they put it by the ring steps, they were going to gouge his eye out, and instead of him yelling at the top of his voice, no, oh Dios mío, no, mama, no, Dios mío, help, anybody. No, he's there like a freaking mute. Make it sound like it hurts. It was great. It was great. Now, as far as the surprises tonight, now, partly right, because I kept saying to everyone, why does it have to be one surprise tonight? Why can't there be 2? As I said Friday. Now, Friday, if you remember the Don Tony show that we did, in the preview section, I put this up in the top right-hand corner. And those were the 3 names that, you know, were getting the most conversation. All right? You got Ember Moon, Bo Dallas, Tessa Blanchard. And if you remember when we talked about it on Friday, you know, we were getting into Ember Moon, and the one thing that everybody kept saying is Ember Moon still has the foot injury. So is she ready to return? I mean, she's been featured on some WWE social shows, and there was never really any clear-cut, you know, report on her return. I mean, everyone out there, do you recall like any website saying Ember Moon is ready for a return, but WWE has nothing for her? Where are all the journalists that covered this? So, but there was one thing that everybody focused on, and I mentioned it Friday, and I was pissed because I didn't have the screenshot with me. I have it tonight. Last week, when they were showing the teaser, or the week before when they were showing the teaser of who possibly could be returning to NXT, there was, for a brief moment, and I don't know who picked up on this, but there's some really outstanding people who are just outstanding with paying attention. Me, when I talk about matches over the years, I always say I'm a stickler to detail. A lot of little things that I pick up on that no one else does. But as far as like Easter eggs, because that's what I call these are Easter eggs. And somebody picked up on it, and everybody was talking about it. And it was the screenshot of this. If you look on the bottom right-hand part, that was from the NXT hype 2 weeks ago. And somebody actually looked at those boxes. You can see it here. There you go. See over there? All right. See, everything I do it on camera, I got to do in reverse. But you see there? Somebody looked at that and said, wow, that looks familiar. And somebody took the time and researched all the NXT TakeOver posters, and they figured out that is Andrade and Aleister Black. And look on the left of the banner, who did it end up being that night? Asuka versus Ember Moon. So that was the teaser. And, I guess we could mention it now. We did have 2 returns tonight. One in person and one on the screen. But Ember Moon. And look, some goops on Friday said to me something really, and there was 2 people that said the same asinine thing. Oh, DT, a black person can ride a motorcycle? When we were talking about the whole going 100 miles an hour, and just the whole Ember Moon, and even Bo Dallas to an extent, didn't seem to fit that mold. It had nothing to do with black or white or anything else. This is characters we're talking about. But Ember Moon making her appearance tonight, and if you look at her, she's got a little bit of a different look. A lot of people, and how weird was it? How weird was it when we talked last week about Mad Max? Remember Mad Max? And I said, which Mad Max was it when we were talking about Tina Turner, I think it was? And I even think in one of those movies, they actually said Thunderdome. But a lot of people tonight were saying that she's got the look from one of the Mad Max movies. That's a good call, But Ember Moon is revealed to be the person on the motorcycle. Thank you, Dorian. Beyond Thunderdome. It's not just Thunderdome, beyond Thunderdome. And speaking of Thunderdome, before I say anything further about Ember Moon, I'm not obviously taking credit. Nobody in the higher-ups listens to yours truly. You got some individuals, obviously. Nobody checks out what we do and say and says, yeah, let's go with it. But how many times have I said on this show my frustration with Thunderdome, with the idea of having that god-awful soccer noise all throughout the night? And we had a discussion at least 3 times on the idea of having some live fans there also, or the NXT stars being loud and making noise, so you have the organic noise, and you also give the appearance of fans there. And that's the one thing that I can't stand about Thunderdome, that, when Bayley turned on Sasha, no reaction whatsoever. You just heard talk. It's the same soccer noise. You have an unbelievable match, and it's the same soccer noise. Somebody does an unbelievable move in the ring where everybody's supposed to be, oh, soccer noise. And the idea was to possibly have, because what have I said on Wednesday Night Don-O-Mite for the last 3 months? Ever since Thunderdome came around, about 2 months ago, whatever it was, what has been my number one complaint? The soccer noise. And what I've also said is that give me 20 or 50 live, loud fans over 500 LED panels any day of the week. Hearing live fans interacting with the wrestlers, actually chanting "this is awesome," whatever else, banging on the plexiglass, banging loud, that feeling that fans are actually there live and not just looking almost like on a Skype, there's no way to compare. So what does WWE do tonight? Number one, they come back to the Performance Center. We do not call it the Performance Center anymore. And I tell you, man, I love the opening. And this tonight beat the living crap out of Thunderdome that we've seen on Raw or SmackDown. Now, let's also be honest. The chances of seeing this set up on Raw and SmackDown is going to be slim, because NXT has always been in front of a much more intimate audience. Yes, takeover events have happened in 10, 20,000 seat arenas, but for the most part, the NXT product is always a much smaller crowd, a much more intimate crowd. Tonight, WWE made changes to really take that small, intimate crowd and build or create a beautiful scene around it. You basically, the complaint that we've heard in the past, that it looks like they're in a warehouse. It looks dead. It looks dark. So what does WWE do tonight? They should give us a little bit of Thunderdome, but it's a very small amount of LED panels, enough to cover the screen, cover one side, and they're in the back. Like if you were buying tickets, Thunderdome was like section 101 to 110. But on the floor, you had live fans around the ringside area, and they were loud, and the mixture of the two was fabulous. Not only that, WWE, it was almost like a smoky atmosphere tonight. It felt old school. It felt 70s with the gray and the black and the white, but not gray in the sense of dead, of emptiness. No, it had a real retro feel to it, and it was just fabulous. Now, what they did do in the beginning was they showed a little clip and a couple of old school photos. And it was Vince McMahon Sr. And this would set up what is now the new name for the Performance Center. So we had the show open up tonight, and this is an actual quote from Vince McMahon Sr. You could see a very young Vince McMahon on the left, his father on the right, and that is his actual handwriting down below. And then what they would do is they would actually show us on the screen exactly what was written. And it said, this Vince McMahon Sr. wrote this in 1977. You're looking at some of the remarkable athletes in the world today. Professional wrestlers are a rare breed of athlete, possessing gargantuan proportions, enormous strengths, unique coordination and agility, a high threshold of physical tolerance, pulverizing power, and the ability to withstand the rigors of one of the most taxing sports known to man. That was his quote in 1977. And one thing, anybody that goes back even to the 90s, look, since the 80s, Vince McMahon has been calling wrestling sports and entertainment. Wrestling was always in the name. World Wrestling Federation. Remember when they would be in the offices? World Wrestling Federation. World Wrestling Federation. Then it was World Wrestling Federation Entertainment, I believe. And then it went to World Wrestling Entertainment. Remember the WWFE? And then they did that campaign, Get the F Out. And then it was just WWE. But, it always felt that Vince McMahon never wanted, always frowned on the term wrestling. Yes, this is entertainment, but wrestling could be entertaining as well. So tonight, they unveiled the new name for the Performance Center. This was 1977. That was the logo for the Capital Wrestling Corporation. Capital Wrestling Corporation was what their company was called before Vince McMahon basically took it over, 82, around there. That is the original banner, and tonight they crowned the arena the Capital Wrestling Center. Tribute to Vince Sr., tribute to Vince Jr., tribute to wrestling. And if you look at the banners, they look awfully similar. But not only that, the banner, more than anything, might give you a flashback to this. Oh, no. Wait. There we go, right there. Bottom one is the Cruiserweight Classic. Top right is the logo for the Capital Wrestling Center, the new home for NXT, and on the left, Capital Wrestling Corporation. So they all look very similar, but that is WWE's new, direction that they're going with the NXT product. And I tell you, for me as a wrestling fan, and I pointed this out Friday when I talked about the quarter-hour ratings of NXT and AEW. You look at SmackDown doing 1.9 million, or Raw doing the 2 million or less than 2 million number, whatever the numbers are. A lot of people don't stop to realize that for the first 1 or 2 quarters of Wednesday Night Wrestling over the last 2 weeks, at one point, there was almost 1.9, if not more than 1.9 million people tuned into wrestling. Yes, as I said before, NBA basketball could have been on before, and some people just forgot to change the channel. That's why I always look at quarter 2, then quarter 1. But the point is, Wednesday Night Wrestling gets viewers almost on the level of Mondays and Fridays. You think of the $1 billion or the hundreds of millions of dollar deal that WWE did with Fox, and then you see NXT on USA. This is WWE looking to take NXT to another level. As far as AEW goes, AEW's got to up their game a little bit more. Because as I talked about with ratings, the female wrestling demographic, and I don't like to talk about demos all that much, but the female wrestling demographic, and as far as the eyes on women's wrestling, is shifting in the direction of WWE. And I'm not just talking about NXT. So the fact that you have the women's division in NXT getting a jolt. Now, tonight, Johnny Gargano posted a tweet. Basically, something's got to change. Storyline, frustration, losing, something's got to change. Does that change end up with him and/or Candice LeRae going to Raw or SmackDown as part of the draft? I have no idea. I know what we have heard in the past about some NXT stars not wanting to go to the main roster, and Johnny Gargano has grown on me. The skits in the house, I never liked those, but he's grown on me. The problem is when you see how many names he has to leapfrog to get to, we could remove those now, to get to the promised land, I don't know if it's happening. Anytime soon. And you see even tonight, a lot of names absent from tonight. So the draft next week, they're not mentioning much about NXT, but it's going to be very interesting to see if some names go to Raw or SmackDown from NXT. But the idea is that they are now stacking the women's division a little bit further. And tonight, we had Ember Moon make an appearance, but we also had one other person too. This was a name that a few of you brought up last week. And all I said last week, I wasn't against it. Go back and listen to what I said on Friday. I said, hey, if she appears, I'm fine with it. The thing is, if you ask me, as far as her or Ember Moon or her or Tessa Blanchard. I haven't said who her is yet. Ember Moon and especially Tessa Blanchard are more recognizable names. They would create more of a buzz in the wrestling world. But tonight we had another appearance, and that was Toni Storm. Now, we've talked about Toni Storm in the past. She had a little bit of a bad brag, if you remember, when she was first getting some notoriety on US TV as far as WWE goes. There was some things leaked, and just really, it felt like it derailed her a little bit. It wasn't her fault, obviously, but Impact was somebody saying, when is Impact going to be buried? Impact Wrestling has a very good women's division also. I have said for a while now, in my opinion, the NXT women's division is probably number one. Impact is number two, and AEW is number three. Now, if AEW could lock up Thunder Rosa and get, maybe one or two women from Japan to return, and maybe you sign another person, who knows? Maybe they end up getting Tessa Blanchard. Very quickly, you see the women's division, you see it shifting. And I'll tell you, 2 years ago, with Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte main eventing Mania, it felt, they deserved it. And I've said that 1,000 times over. But it was so forced, it literally hurt a lot of not only women's wrestlers, but men in WWE. And I've brought this up in the past. When you have someone come out in the men's division and he's cutting a promo that he hates this other person and wants a challenge to a match, but before he expresses his hatred, he's got to give props on how the women are making history at WrestleMania. It was like, almost like with Connor's Cure. Every single person's got to wear a pin. Whether they want to or not, everybody's got to wear a pin. Everybody's got to wear the pink shirt. And I'm not against that stuff. But I tell you, organic, for me, is number one. Organic. Authenticity. There's so many different ways to put it. I always talk about me. Some people could call, I said this earlier, I did blah, blah, blah on Patreon earlier today. A lot of you could call me an ass. A lot of you could call, first curse tonight. A lot of you could call me a jerk. A lot of you could call me, that I think that my shit don't stink. Okay, curse number 2. You could say a lot of things about me, but what you can't say ever is that I'm a liar. Authenticity is number one, because it's very, very difficult to keep up fake. You might fool some people some of the time, and you may be able to fool people, especially with social media now, where you could type anything and everybody believes it, but sooner or later you get caught. Authenticity, being authentic, organic, there's nothing that replaces that. Nobody's perfect in this world. So if you're authentic about what you do, and people could see that you're straight up honest, even if they might not like you, that goes a long way. But organic, as far as women's wrestling goes, there are some forms of entertainment that are viewed more by women than men. There's some forms of entertainment that are viewed more by men than women. And the thing is that with pro wrestling, the idea of doing 50-50 booking, and I don't mean wins and losses, I mean 50-50 in the terms of men and women wrestling on the card, that's up to your audience. That's up to your audience. If your audience, if your roster, if it comes across that your majority of your roster, the ones that people are tuning into, the ones that are buying the merchandise, the ones that are not changing the channel, if a large number of them are men, you can't turn around and say, well, we got to put the women on anyway, because then it just doesn't look right. No, you put on TV who is your bread and butter. It's an entertainment company, not a quota company, And that's where AEW is getting heat, because you get people online, hey, how come there was only 5 minutes of women's wrestling in a 2-hour show? And then I always turn around and I say to those people, very politely, well, tell me who you would have put on tonight. And then you put on Nyla Rose or somebody else, and I don't mean to single her out, but you put her on with someone else, and then they're like, oh, why is this on the main show? They're not very good. So you can't have it both ways, my friend. It's who is on your roster, who is getting eyes to the product, and who is delivering in the ring. Right now, women's wrestling, it feels organic. It doesn't feel forced. When you have tonight Toni Storm, and by the way, I mean, talk about a visual. I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Toni Storm fan because she hasn't been on My American Television enough for me to really connect on her. I've seen her work online, and she's fabulous. But talk about a visual. I mean, that just looks like Star. And I don't care if her hair is white, black, red, blue. She just came off as strong. And, you know, Io Shirai, with all due respect, you know, she's looking at her like, oh, okay, all right, I'm liking it, you know. But, again, here is another woman going on the roster that they're not going to have her beat Xia Li in a minute, and that's basically going to be her role for the next couple of months. You know, let's be honest. You know, it's not a sexist thing to say. Let's be honest. You know, looking beautiful and having a nice aesthetic look to yourself helps in a lot of ways. Toni Storm is a very attractive woman, and she is excellent in the ring. She is going to be a tremendous asset for NXT. Ember Moon, we remember her history in NXT. She came up to the main roster, and it never fit perfectly. And that's why when some people say, oh, we talked about it Friday, some people are saying even now, oh, I wish Kairi Sane would return. I wish Kairi Sane, she's working for WWE in Japan. Why? Oh, I would love to see her back. And then I politely say, and what is she going to do? Is she going to leapfrog Sasha, Bayley, Charlotte when she returns, Asuka, Mercedes Martinez, and Mia Yim? They're going to get pushed as part of the Retribution storyline. Oh, can't wait till tomorrow. When Mish and I are on for Breakfast Soup Raw, you know my scenario. I've been pushing the idea of Kevin Owens doing a carbon copy of Steve Austin joining the Alliance in '01. Tonight, on the Patreon show, I add a little twist to it. And people had heard it, they're like, I'm feeling that. We're going to talk about, we're not going to talk about it tonight because it's not NXT. But the point is that now you have two women added to that roster. And there are other names rumored as well. So right now, it does not feel like you're going to see women on TV simply because they're women. It's because they're talented and they're going to draw ratings. It's going to be very interesting to see. And I'm telling you, man, Tessa Blanchard, I know a lot of you do not like her, but let's be honest, she is one talented mofo. She definitely deserves a second opportunity, in my opinion. You know, for all of you out there that talk about, oh, it's baggage, and it's a Velveteen Dream. I mean, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but you all know this by now. I've defended Velveteen Dream since day one simply because I took time that a lot of people would not do, and I just researched. You know, you look at times things were logged, you look at what people say, you look at what people do and don't do, and when you start actually looking at this instead of cutting and pasting, you start saying, wait, this don't make sense, and this doesn't add up, and this... Again, as I said earlier, you could call me, conceited, cocky with my shows. But one thing, any longtime person out there that's been following me could say this with the utmost honesty. I've been doing this since '97, and in 24 years, I might have gotten maybe 10 things wrong in 24 years. I don't get things wrong. I give opinions. I sometimes break news, sometimes, but I give opinions. And most of the time, my opinions end up being correct. The Velveteen Dream thing, like I said, do you think $1 billion company is going to keep a sexual predator on their roster? You just take a step back and think about that. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And by the way, Jack Gallagher, since he was on NXT at some point, and we're going to be talking about him tomorrow night. I am very curious to see how you all feel about his statement that he came out with. I have a lot to say about that. I can't wait till tomorrow. But, VJ is commenting right now saying this was the first time VJ is watching NXT. A lot of people think that every wrestling fan out there watches AEW and NXT, and that's just not true. I mean, tonight was a great introduction to fans of NXT. If you want no nonsense, almost no hokey stuff, there was one part of the night on one match that I was like, should I just say it now? Gargano coming out with Candice LeRae versus Io Shirai. The referee is knocked out. Gargano's got a referee shirt on. Now, I'm just saying in storyline. I always talk in storyline. Gargano goes and starts counting to 3 for his wife, Candice LeRae. Just common sense. Why does Gargano stop at 2? If you ever watch when a heel comes out with a referee shirt on, why do they stop at 2? I mean, it just, and then the worst part is the referee, gets, his wherewithal to get back in the match. And the referee is arguing with Johnny Gargano tonight saying, give me my shirt. Give me back my shirt. And I'm looking at the referee, and the referee is already wearing a referee shirt. Give me my shirt. I guess we're allowed to have a little stupidity. Speaking of referees, Scott Armstrong is back. He's back. So, he was furloughed, and, they're bringing back some people who were furloughed. WWE sees light at the end of the tunnel as far as being able to expand their product again, and hopefully by early next year, we will start seeing, regular touring once again. You got to keep in mind, and I stress this because I think a lot of people don't realize this. When I talk about flu shots here in the United States, only about half of our country gets a flu shot. Whether there was a presidential election or not, whether Trump was president, Obama was president, Biden was president, Kermit the Frog was president, The Rock, Oprah, no matter who is president right now, the vaccine, even you could choose anybody you want. Your favorite person in the world is president. Still, probably only half to 60% of the country would get the vaccine. It's not because of trust. If it had to do with trust, why do people don't trust flu shots year after year after year? People are afraid of allergic reactions. People are afraid that kids are going to get autism. Some people just don't believe in medicine. As crazy as that sounds, some people, and a decent number of people, don't believe in medicine. So when the vaccine comes out, this virus is going to be around for years. It's going to be around for years because you're always going to have people out there who are not going to get vaccinated. And if somebody gets sick, what are you going to do? Go to a club and everybody that got the vaccine has a red sticker and those who didn't get the vaccine has a blue sticker? And what do you do? If you remember my original idea, I got crapped on by a lot of you out there. I said, if you get the vaccine, you have a little card in your wallet that says you got vaccinated. Because me personally, if I wanted to hire someone, I prefer to hire someone that got vaccinated. So I don't have to worry about that person one day walking in because they went out for a couple of cocktails the night before and some person happened to sit next to them next to the bar. And next thing you know, my secretary is sick. And then I have to worry about a customer getting sick or I get sick. So, people, when you have fans at wrestling shows, there are always going to be fans in the crowd that are not vaccinated. So that's going to be around for a couple of years. So when next year comes around and people are back at shows, fans, and some of them are not wearing masks, trust me, people will still get the virus and they'll still get sick from it. What you have to do, and this might get controversial next year, we'll have to see if wrestling companies insist that only people who have been vaccinated could work on their shows. I know what some of you are going to say, well, isn't that against the law? I don't think so. I do not think so. And by the way, tomorrow night, we're going to talk a little bit about the stuff with WWE and Twitch, because I honestly and truthfully believe that there is a way out where WWE wrestlers can stay on Twitch and keep all the money that they make. Something that I'm going to bring up tomorrow, that WWE, Andrew Yang, I told you, I like the guy, but, he's being political. He's not going to do anything for WWE. If Trump gets reelected, let's see what Yang does the next 4 years. Remember when I said that? 4 years from now, 15 years from now, you see what Andrew Yang actually does. But even with that said, what I say tomorrow night, I even think Andrew Yang would say, I don't know who you are, but that's actually a pretty good idea. So we'll do that tomorrow. So anyway, enough of my ranting. We talked 35 minutes. Look, one thing I will say about the matches tonight. Number one, again, there was only 5. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, kick out by blah, 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 tope suicida, reverse hurricane rana into a 360 for a 2 count, and blah, blah, blah. I don't do that. I give you the overall view on the match, what I liked, what I didn't like, what stood out to me. And if you did not see the pay-per-view, you decide if you want to watch it or not. I'm not going to do play-by-play. That's not what I'm about. But once again, they opened up with that old school footage, and it is now the Capitol Wrestling Center, excuse me. And I loved it. The Thunderdome, the mixture of Thunderdome, it's not overpowering. There's a good balance. And you had the Thunderdome colors. It didn't look dead in there. It didn't look like, an empty. The Thunderdome colors with the loud fans around ringside, that combination, plus the smoky environment, if you know what I'm talking about, the gray, a lot of black and white, it was fabulous, fabulous. I have said, like I said earlier, for 2 months, and I'm sorry for repeating myself again, give me 50 loud, quote-unquote, fans around the ring during NXT on Wednesday night, or even AEW around the ring on Wednesday night, than Raw or SmackDown LED panels. I don't care if you set the Guinness World Record of LED fans in attendance for a show, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something like that. Still, it's not organic. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I challenge you next week, Raw or SmackDown, watch the first half hour of each show. But I don't want you to watch the first half hour of each show. I want you to just listen to it. Listen to the beginning and the end of Raw. Listen to the beginning and end of SmackDown. And listen then NXT. Timothy Thatcher. Remember when he had that match a couple of months ago? I think he might have faced Gargano. And I said to you all, I can't wait for these quarter ratings to come out, because the way they were banging the plexiglass, I said, if there was a legit live NXT audience there, I don't think they would have popped like that. They made Timothy Thatcher sound like $1 million. When the quarter-hour rating came out, it was Shangada. Tonight, that energy made Isaiah Swerve Scott go to the next level. I mean, that was phenomenal. Look, the ending with the turnbuckle was a little bit botched. It did not look great. And then they did replay, and it still didn't look great. But Isaiah Swerve Scott tonight, I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that I think this time next year, Isaiah Swerve Scott will be, and I hope everybody understands when I say this, he will be where Rich Swann, Ricochet, and Cedric Alexander were in the WWE 3 or 4 years ago. All right. If you remember when they were doing a little bit of 205, this is when Enzo was still around. they were featured on the main brand, but they were still trying to find their area. And look, I used to joke about Cedric Alexander. You remember my day? Every time I get the call, no one reacts to me at all. Every time I get the call, no one reacts to me at all. It didn't click for some of them. But I think Isaiah Swerve Scott will have that opportunity to click. And Ashante Adonis tonight, just cutting his promo. I mean, he is just smooth. I'm telling you, this was a great night for wrestling. Simple. So, anyway, opening match tonight, Damian Priest. And by the way, look, I think no one out there should have gotten any match predictions wrong tonight. Tonight, 5 for 5. Again, now if you add that on to my list, the last 46 matches, I am 44-2 as far as predictions go. So I don't have no Reddit account. I don't have any other behind-the-scenes stuff. Trust me, if I had connections that were given, and by the way, the other two outcomes, one was bullshit because I wanted, remember the Lashley controversy? But if I had connections like that, I'd be betting that website that actually bets like Las Vegas odds and stuff like that. So, no, we'll talk about Halloween, Michael. We will actually, we could mention it now. We don't have to do things in order like everybody else. But something else was announced tonight, that on October 28th, you would think, since SmackDown is the day before Halloween, you would do it on SmackDown. But because NXT and AEW are on the same night, on October 28th, which is a Wednesday, WWE will be bringing back, and I think the last time they had an event might have been October of 2000, we will have the return. Oh, let's do it over here. Oh, we could show it like this way, because you can see in the background. You see Shotzi in the background? That is Shotzi Blackheart. Halloween Havoc returns October 28th. On NXT, it's going to be hosted by Shotzi Blackheart. She did a little vignette tonight, Trick or Treat, Are You Scared? And like I said, she's a little bit too reckless. Her and Darby Allin are the two I'm most concerned about as far as injury, wrestling-wise. She's just got a fascination on falling on her back awkwardly. But she's so likable. And her hosting Halloween, I'm cool with that. So that is what we have to look forward to in 3 weeks from this Wednesday. And we'll see what AEW counters with. AEW honestly should counter with something solid, because isn't their next pay-per-view the first week in November? I'm pretty sure it's the first week in November. So we'll see. But I like that they're bringing back Halloween Havoc. One of the things that I used to love that they would do in ECW once in a while is they'd have two wrestlers face each other, but they wear each other's gimmick, that somebody would come out dressed as the other person. And it would be interesting to see if WWE did that actually this year, where somebody faces someone else and they're dressed as the other person. Look, let's see what happens. I think, it's a themed show. They did Great American Bash not too long ago, and that actually did very well on Wednesday night. And look, whether you're a diehard, I shouldn't say diehard, whether you prefer AEW on Wednesdays or NXT on Wednesdays, as a wrestling fan, you should enjoy if, these companies, step it up a little bit. That's just more great stuff for us to talk about. Just think, if this show stunk tonight, I might even be done to the recap already. It would have been not much to talk about. So anyway, before I go any further, I want to answer a couple of super chats. Puffy89, he thought that tonight's show was great. The new setup almost reminds him of WCW Saturday Night. That's a good one. You know what? You know why I say this is better, though? Because WCW Saturday Night they didn't have, mostly wrestling fans in the building. You'd have tourists. Yeah, hey, free wrestling, come in tonight. Even some Impact I didn't like back in the day because you had people sitting at ringside weren't even wrestling fans, and they would just look like potted plants, look like Angie, you know? So, but that's a good comparison. That's a great comparison. By the way, if you notice, I tweaked the banner tonight. I'm going to mess around with it. I'm going to do little things here and there. I know that there's people out there that have very creative things when they post stuff up. You know, I want to do a little at a time. I want to take my time. Like I said, you got people out there that are doing podcasts on YouTube for 10 years. I'm doing it 8 months, you know, and I think we've gone pretty damn far in 8 months. And, you know, we're just hitting the surface. So, but no, I love that comparison. I'm telling you, remember the movie The Wrestler, Mickey Rourke? I never really liked the movie as much as others, but, you know, that old raw feeling of him going to the indies. Or, you know, it's a great one. I know it's an outdated movie, but since everybody was on the Rocky IV kick lately, you know, with the idea of Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns, and that was the copy of Rocky and Apollo and Ivan Drago, go back to the first 45 seconds of Rocky 1. When you see Rocky in the ring and nobody knows who he is yet, and he's beating some guy or whatever, you look at that dark, you know, old school, and it's interesting because Raw Underground, a lot of people feel like it's old school UFC 1995. I've brought that up. It's got that old raw feeling of when Ultimate Fighting was still underground, when A Current Affair was still doing special segments about this fighting that's underground, but it's safe and this and that. Raw Underground feels retro. NXT tonight and the setup feels retro. We talk about some storylines on WWE programming that feels retro. You know, old is new again. I think that is the phrase that the Donzilla Army has to use repeatedly from now on. Like Carmella is using untouchable, which we picked it up Friday. That is going to be the word associated with her. You can't stand how they just kept saying Monday Night Messiah or now Tribal Chief. Wait till you hear untouchable. That word is going to get so annoying in your head. Do a drinking game every time you hear the word untouchable when it comes to Carmella. So, by the way, shout out to Faust. Apparently, I am his Tribal Chief. Hey, you like that spin? You see the spin? I don't know. I didn't do that, but check that out. I don't know where that spin comes from. But he wanted to let me know that I am his Tribal Chief. Much love to you as well. Thank you, Faust. And no, Psycho, I'm not talking about the quality of Raw Underground, even though overall I've liked it. But, you know, I think Arturo Ruas should have been used a little bit more. Marina Shafir should have been used a little bit more. You know, this constant brawling that leads to the outside, which, you know, I've brought up countless times, and wrestlers, which is not their fault, you know, just from force of habit and doing repetition for 15 years. You know, they're trying to make it look like UFC and they're going for pins. They go for something and they're like, oh shit, I forgot I'm not supposed to be wrestling right now. And, it, you know, it looks a little, you know, sloppy. But, of course, you want mainstream names on Raw Underground because, unfortunately, let's be honest, Arturo Ruas is a badass. You put Arturo Ruas versus blah, 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 and people might say, you know, I'm going to go get a drink. I'm going to go microwave something, make some popcorn, or I'm going to go take a dump. Doesn't generate ratings. So, and Neil Ray, love is always great. And that will be, he's talking, is that towards me? I think he's talking about, I got to enlarge this a little bit. Love is always doing great. And he loves that EO is doing great. I thought you were talking about me, man. And you know I'm only kidding about this. You know, Neil knows, much love. Io Shirai, man. Io Shirai, she's safe right now with that title. You don't have to worry about her. Toni Storm is probably coming for her. Ember Moon tonight signaled that she's coming for her. So Rhea Ripley, like I said, we have to really, I know we could sit here all night long and talk about fantasy matches or who's next for Io Shirai. But we really have to wait a week and see if NXT stars come to Raw or SmackDown. Seriously, because the thing is, I understand TakeOver was tonight. But if you're going to incorporate NXT in the draft, you would think common sense, Ember Moon would have been drafted to NXT. You know, I personally prefer what they did tonight. You know, even though I kind of feel that the bike riding might have been better suited for someone else, only because I look at the character of Ember Moon. You know, but hey, I like it. And Io Shirai, you know, we have to wait because Rhea Ripley could very well be going to Raw or SmackDown. And honestly, at this point, you know, who else could Rhea Ripley really feud with right now? Dakota Kai? You know what I mean? It just feels like, okay, Rhea Ripley took on Charlotte at WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley has not had a great past 6 months since. And, you know, they're not going to suddenly put Rhea Ripley, and what does that do for Toni Storm or Ember Moon or someone else? Yes, Sam, I agree. Chicks on bikes are always good. Great. But then again, you know, I dated a girl once, and she, I've told this before, she had dated someone before me that abused the fuck out of her, and he was like a big metalhead that rode a motorcycle all the time, and she went from a metalhead that was into like Judas Priest, beating her up all the time on a motorcycle, and then me, you know, nice guy that likes to check out house music and stuff like that, and cuisine from the neighborhood over here. And after about 2 months, you know, we broke up because I just didn't fit that mold. Just didn't work out, you know. But she used to love being on a motorcycle, to the point that I actually told my friend, could you teach me how to ride a motorcycle? Because I thought I'd be, now we didn't have those Geico commercials at the time where people are going on the highway riding the big boys, you know. But back then I thought, hey, you know, I know how to ride a bike. I rode a moped, one of those Honda scooters back then. So I thought maybe I could ride a motorcycle. I put my ass on the seat. I tried to move the handlebars like this. I'm like, yeah, forget it. Forget it. Just think, I was going to talk about my car accident. I was going to try to get a crash course on how to ride a motorcycle just so I could try to get laid. Say it bluntly. So I peed out. And I don't mean pee as in urinating. I'm just trying not to curse. Rhymes with wussy. I wussied out. All right. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about tonight. Let's move on. Thank you, Neil. So Damian Priest retains the North American Championship against Johnny Gargano. They definitely need a rematch. Their match was spectacular tonight. Now, a lot of the outcomes, like I said, I don't think anybody should have gotten predictions wrong tonight. And when you can predict who's going to win every match, what you need to fall back on is a great match. Because if the outcomes are already predictable in your mind, you know, one of the beautiful things about wrestling is when you don't know who's going to win, that's when you're on the edge of your seat. You know, it's like a roller coaster ride emotionally. You're up, you're down, you're up and down. Tonight was more of, okay, how do we get to Damian Priest winning? And Damian Priest, look, that guy is a big guy. Very, very tall. And he is still a little bit newer. And we've talked about also that ratings-wise, he is not the big draw yet. I'm not concerned at all. Damian Priest, you know, he appears to be a megastar in the making. Damian Priest is someone who I have showed a lot of love to on this show for the last year or so. And Damian Priest tonight showed that he can hang. And he's been in some matches that have been longer. But a lot of people are going a little bit ahead talking about Velveteen Dream. We'll get to Velveteen Dream in a moment. He's only the second match of the night. In fact, I think it would only be apropos if we actually give a little props, little banner props to the matches tonight. Damian Priest and Gargano, the only thing about the match is, got to give a lot of credit to Gargano, because Gargano was really leading this match. But there was a couple of moments that were kind of like, I'll give you the one that really stood out to me. Later on in the match, Johnny Gargano hit a tope suicida. And then had the upper hand of Damian Priest. Damian Priest hits him with a Superman punch, tried to hit a spin kick, and Gargano actually got him outside the ring. And Damian Priest he's standing up. Damian Priest is outside the ring, and Johnny Gargano is standing on the outside of the ring apron. He's by the corner turnbuckle. Johnny Gargano, for some reason, you'll see what I'm talking about, he just starts walking across the other side of the ring apron. And Damian Priest just does a spin and kick, and he knocks Gargano's legs from underneath him. But when you look at it, it's not like Priest had hit him first and Gargano was just in a daze and he walked into it. Gargano just like standing there and then just starts walking at Damian Priest. And then they did that. So you could see that, and Psycho says if you take Roman Reigns and you add Tess to it, you get Damian Priest. No. God rest Andrew Martin's soul, but to me, Damian Priest is going to be a hell of a lot better than Andrew Martin Test. Maybe Damian Priest doesn't get to the same level of Test. Test had some pretty high-profile stuff back in the day. From Stephanie McMahon to Stacy Keibler to Testicles. And all. I mean, the guy went a lot farther than anybody thought. That guy had a pretty good career. Unfortunately, you know his demise. And I'll never forget that one appearance he made on TNA. I mean, I saw recently the Impact Wrestling. Today in wrestling history, Andrew Martin, one-time appearance. And I'm saying to myself, God rest his soul and everything, but I don't think that's a moment in history you really want to remind people of. Do that for Jeff Hardy when he had his match with Sting, and then we'll talk, But I like Damian Priest. Damian Priest, his voice, it's not just deep, but he's got a presence about himself. I'm telling you, it's like Razor Ramon meets Bret Hart meets Diesel. And I don't mean Bret Hart in the wrestling as far as chain wrestling, but, the way he has his hair, I'm serious, the way he has his hair and he puts on the shades that are similar to Bret Hart, he looks like a Puerto Rican Bret Hart. And I'm not saying that in any negative way. Damian Priest has it. Just it needs to be seasoned a lot more. And what's going to ultimately happen. Damian Priest is going to need to become more of a character. Just teasing, hot tubs and hanging out with girls is not going to be enough, especially when you go to the main roster. Perfect example is Keith Lee. Keith Lee. And look, I'm not saying this to try to brag. I'm just bringing out a point. Before Keith Lee came to the main roster, right before he had his match with Karrion Kross, you might remember when I said on Wednesday Night Don-O-Mite that Keith Lee is destined to be a Raw or SmackDown wrestler now. Even though he had beautiful matches with Dijakovic, and I'll still remember those Fight Forever chants. And they did a Fight Forever chant tonight with Gargano and Priest, by the way. The thing with Keith Lee is that the way he talks and the way he moves and the way he does everything he does, it feels like a main roster character. It doesn't feel like an NXT star. I don't know if people understand, like Keith Lee fits the perfect mold of what a WWE superstar will be. I don't care that they're covering up his chest or this. I don't care about it. That has nothing to do with it. But Keith Lee, the way he cuts a promo, his charisma, how he reacts, and he could feed off of fans, even though we don't have live fans there. Keith Lee was destined to be on the main roster, and they did it sooner than later. Jay Dominance says something interesting here. Jay Dominance says, let me pull it up. Where did my thing go? Oh, no, don't tell me I accidentally closed it. No, I got backup, but sorry, we don't have the purple thing on the top anymore. But Jay Dominance says, Matt Riddle, Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, and Damian Priest are the future. Yeah. And what's great about that is, with the exception of Matt Riddle a little bit, those are big, mobile guys. Karrion Kross is no 5'10". Karrion Kross, he's a big boy. Keith Lee, big boy. Damian Priest, big boy. You know, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but I've said before I want to do a segment very, very soon on Wednesdays in tribute to QT Marshall. I'm going to do a little contest called Who Dat? And basically I'm going to take a wrestler that has recently been on either Ring of Honor or AEW, not necessarily Dynamite, and I'm just going to post him in street clothes. And I'm going to just post it. I'm going to say, who dat? And you watch how 95% of the wall will not know who it is. Seriously, I did that contest with Matt Martell, NXT. And just about everybody had no clue who it is. I think Shezi Ali might have been the only one who did. But, you know, some wrestlers, they look like, with all due respect, they look like people who work in Starbucks. That they should be giving me a cup of coffee. You know, give me a keto latte, please. No sugar. You look at Damian Priest. You look at Matt Riddle, Karrion Kross, Keith Lee. These look like wrestlers, larger-than-life stars. Now, yes, you can look like a regular guy, but you have to have some outstanding qualities about yourself. Seriously. Because, and people are going to laugh at me, I will be the first one to take the lumps when it's deserving. Do you remember a year ago, before Adam Cole went on that run and was the MVP, in my opinion, for WWE last year? And, you know, I think Adam Cole should have been Wrestler of the Year with Moxley second, just my opinion. But if you remember a year ago, I said that the problem with the Undisputed Era is that all four guys look like that they're bouncers at a nightclub. I mean, maybe not necessarily Adam Cole, but they look like guys that you would see be bouncing in a nightclub. Now, yes, when we just paid tribute to Road Warrior Animal, God rest his soul, we talked about the nightclub that he worked at in Chicago. And he was bouncing at the nightclub. Ravishing Rick Rude was bouncing at the nightclub. Smash of Demolition. It was like 5-6 guys. But when they were bouncing at the nightclub in 1982, they didn't have the gimmicks or anything like that. You know, they didn't have the long hair or the special haircuts. No, they just looked like big, muscular guys. So you have to really stand out in order to really, get the attention. Damian Priest has got it. And Johnny Gargano has got it too. That's why they had to tweak Gargano's character too. They made him more of like the preppy guy, maybe like a millennial that his crap doesn't stink, and Candice LeRae, like almost like, what's the male equivalent of a Karen? I'm not saying that Candice LeRae is a Karen. I'm not saying it at all. But, just coming off that, very preppy, you know what I mean? But I don't even know if there is a male version of Karen. Maybe there is. Hopefully it's not an Anthony. Let's see. Yes, Scott Hall was a Craig. No, can't be a Craig. Ken. Oh, is it Ken and Karen? A Ken? Really? That Chad? Oh, we got a lot of Chads that are pretty cool. Maxwell, everybody's just coming up with random names. So I'll go with Ken. Ken and Karen. Ken and Karen. I'm surprised. Well, you know what? Barbie is not like a regular name. But I would say Barbie and Ken, like representing the dolls. That was kind of them. You know, but the only problem is with Barbie, though, like, do you have a picture like Barbie, like getting angry? You know, I know it's a doll and I know that it doesn't talk, but if it came to life, do you think she'd probably be like, is my mascara running? Or where's my purse? You know, like, I just can't picture Barbie in Central Park, like yelling at someone because they're black. You know what I mean? But Ken, I never liked Ken. And if I remember correctly, didn't the Ken doll have no balls? He had no penis either. Ken had no penis and no balls, if I remember. I don't know why, but when me and my friends were young, like, we never played with dolls, but whenever we went over somebody's house that played with dolls, for some reason, we would always, like, laugh just for stripping them naked. We wanted to see what was under the clothes. I don't know why, but that's growing up Don Tony when I was 9. So anyway, so Damian Priest retains, and, you know, excellent match. Damian Priest hitting Gargano with the Reckoning. He retains the title. And as I said earlier, Gargano on social media, something's got to change. So I'm not saying that they're going to go to the main roster, but that should be something considered. Because I don't know where they go from here. I don't think that WWE's doing that mixed match challenge or whatever anytime soon. And, you know, if they're going to remain a couple, I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do with them. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Kushida versus Velveteen Dream. I know I'm getting old because almost nobody compared Velveteen Dream's hair to Don King. I mean, people were coming up. I mean, the one that I saw tonight more than anything was, what was the guy's name from Back to the Future? You know, Marty, you know, the scientist. What was his name again? Doc? I think it was Doc, right? People were comparing him to Doc Brown. Thank you, Sam. Doc Brown, VJ, also, thank you. Doc Brown. I'm looking at it. First of all, Doc Brown didn't have, like, that hair. Doc Brown's hair was white. Plus, Doc Brown was not old. He was just like a wild scientist. Velveteen Dream's hair looked like Don King. Not Doc Brown, Don King. Plain and simple. But Velveteen Dream, a little bit of a different look. Loving the yellow gloves. And I'm telling you, man, you know, until I see evidence otherwise, until something else comes out, I have no problem taking credit of being the only guy. Maybe JD might be the exception. I even think JD at times had said that he thinks Velveteen Dreams. I think I'm the only guy that from day one didn't buy into that stuff. It just didn't make sense. We're not going to try it again here, but it didn't make sense. But, and I'm not just saying this because I defended the guy, but that guy told the story tonight in the ring, possibly better than anybody. Seriously. Because Kushida, everything that Kushida worked on, his arm, his elbow, his hand, whatever it is, Velveteen Dream sold it the entire match. Now, I will admit, when that match started, I was paying attention to Thunderdome. I wanted to see how many people were going to try to put the photo, you know, of Dream that caused the controversy online. I wanted to see if anybody was going to put a little, you know, text of what school did you go to and all this other stuff, but nobody did. And I got to give credit. Everybody was doing this, giving a lot of thumbs down. I'll tell you this much. I wouldn't do this, but what I think could happen, I'm not saying it should or it will, but what could happen is you may start seeing, and I wouldn't be surprised In fact, I'm trying to think now like a triggered social media person out there, and I have a feeling what's going to happen is you're going to get this person who claims they're a victim, the Velveteen Dream, but for some reason never called an investigator. That person is probably going to go on social media very, very shortly and say to the WWE Universe, if you ever do Thunderdome during NXT and Velveteen Dream comes on, walk away from your screen. Just show a blank screen or turn it off. I want to see if anybody actually does that. In my opinion, I live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty. And I will never get over the fact that people actually lied about going to the cops. So, and still to this day, never called authorities, contacted them. So, again, Thunderdome, they were obviously against Velveteen Dream, but Kushida it was a very competitive match. And, Dream was hitting a lot of his moves. Kushida was hitting a lot of his moves. I had to take a little slug of water. My voice, I actually almost lost my voice before. Anybody was on Patreon. Early on in the show, I started feeling really sick. By the end of the show, I felt better. And then a half hour after, I was getting ready to watch NXT, my voice was almost gone. And now I feel pretty good, just a little dry throat, probably just from talking so much. But this was a flat-out brawl. And look, Kushida, they're trying to play off that he's a savage. But the match was fairly even. But again, Velveteen Dream, when he was getting his ass kicked, very loud, very vocal, screaming at the top of his lungs, really telling a great story in the ring. Thank you. Sometimes I fall a little behind. My mistake. There we go. Thank you. I forgot I had the banners on the screen. But, Velveteen Dream hit him with a super kick. Kushida with a lot of arm bars tonight, a lot of submission moves. I love when Kushida hits the hoverboard, that move off the top rope. Kushida, when he got signed to NXT, we honestly thought that he had the capabilities of rising to the top. And then he had injuries. And then we thought about Hideo Itami. And we thought about how WWE has utilized some wrestlers from Japan. It's not a racist thing or anything like that. It's just that WWE has a track record. You bring in foreign wrestlers, especially those that don't speak English, and they always have that as a strike against you. Asuka is a rare breed. Asuka is an exception to the rule. But you look at over the years, going back even to when I was a fan in the 80s, you had some wrestlers that, didn't really speak English on camera, but they're managers, But a lot of people would always have, it almost felt like there was a strike against them already because they were an international wrestler that really didn't speak English. You had some wrestlers that WWE chose to leave them as someone who doesn't speak English. I think back to Jerry, exception to the rule because he had that chemistry with William Regal. He was great in ECW. And Tajiri, when he came back a couple of years ago, and we thought that Tajiri might be able to, hang in NXT for a little while, and that pretty much did not last. Father Time catches up to you, And so when WWE signed Kushida, it was a big deal. But you look at the track record, and I always brought up Kenzo Suzuki as another one. Kenzo Suzuki, when they first brought him in, we thought that, that guy was going to go much farther. And then, everything turned into a joke with Hiroko, and then John Cena got to them, and that was the end of it, Even though the topless photos of Hiroka were pretty sexy. I still have them in an old hard drive somewhere. Ultimo Dragon, Ken, I don't put him in that category because Ultimo Dragon was already like a Hall of Famer. He was at the tail end of his career. His career was really pushed to the moon when he had like 12 titles at one point, like Jushin Thunder Liger. And Ultimo Dragon, in WCW, mid-90s, he was showcased very well. Problem is that Ultimo Dragon was never looked at as a heavyweight. And, I will never forget when WCW brought him in and they were calling him the Ultimate Dragon. Not Ultimo, but the Ultimate Dragon. They changed that quickly. But, look, you bring, some people are bringing up like Jimmy Wang Yang. Hakushi never went far. Hakushi had a great match with Bret Hart. You say Hakushi, almost everybody out there will say, oh, you remember that match with Bret Hart? That was outside. You have to have more than that. You know what I mean? Even though Jinsei Shinzaki, him and Hayabusa versus Sabu and Rob Van Dam, Heatwave 98, is still in my top 10 of my favorite all-time ECW matches. So WWE sometimes doesn't know what to do with some of these wrestlers. So now, after all this time, now they're taking Kushida a little bit more serious. I don't think there was any doubt of Kushida getting the win tonight. After the match was over, Kushida, for some reason, just kept attacking Velveteen Dream. And Velveteen Dream, like I said, selling it like $1 million. Kushida was outstanding tonight. But this guy screaming and writhing in pain. And, not only that, like I said, even if you despise Velveteen Dream, as a wrestling fan, you go back at that. You look at his facial features, his reactions, and how you really believed that he's writhing in pain. And that's what you want in a wrestler. It's not just the ability in the ring, but the expression, the visual, the audio, everything about it. And I'm sorry, Humberto Carrillo, I sincerely apologize, amigo, but he will probably always be the number one comparison I do to. The guy almost, in storyline, almost loses an eyeball. And he's like, instead of, oh, Dios mío, no, mío, Dios, Alistair, help, help. And he's not the only one. If you really want to see what I'm talking about, go back to the early Raws of COVID, when they had nobody around ringside. Because remember, there was a period where AEW had wrestlers around ringside and WWE would not do it. And week after week, what did we say? Oh, WWE's being stubborn. Just do it. You have the wrestlers there. They're in the Performance Center training. Just put them around ringside during the matches. Ultimately, they did. But go back at that time before they even put wrestlers around ringside, and you will realize WWE has a lot of fucking mutes that make no sounds when they get beat up. Submission move. You're about to break somebody's arm, and they're like, yell, scream. Charlotte does a great job at that. A lot of people do. You're seeing it more. And Kushida and Velveteen Dream told a really good story tonight. Again, when I'm done with this, I don't even know what match. As I'm rethinking the matches, as we're doing a recap, I'll obviously come up with one. And I'm starting to lean towards one in particular. But excellent match. Excellent match. Kushida gets the win. The only thing you got to be concerned about is, do they report on WWE that Velveteen Dream suffered a torn this or dislocated this? Because if they do an injury thing on WWE.com, then you know that there's trouble for Velveteen Dream. Maybe he gets drafted to the main roster. Oh, if that happens. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. We'll see. But excellent match. Excellent match. So, I didn't forget this time. We go to Santos Escobar retaining the Cruiserweight title, beating Isaiah Swerve Scott. Now, Escobar's entourage come out, and they try to get involved in the match, and we get Ashante Adonis coming out, trying to help Isaiah Swerve Scott, made the save. There was one point during the match where Isaiah Swerve Scott, he had Santos Escobar on the ropes, and he climbed up and did a Huracan Rana to Escobar over the top rope onto Escobar's El Hijo del Fantasma, or the faction. And like I said, Santos Escobar, you don't take the title off of him right now. No need to. The guy looks like $1 million. He is a great character. It still blows me away that people who do shows that claim to watch Lucha Underground religiously for the whole bunch of seasons, and they still don't even know who Santos Escobar was in Lucha. I mean, the guy was just featured on the posters. I mean, that guy is money. You may not pay attention all that much to him, and, you know, he may not be popping crazy ratings right now, but that guy is a big part of NXT. And he made Isaiah Swerve Scott tonight look like $1 million. Isaiah Swerve Scott, he did his job tonight. And I tell you, again, the fans around ringside are the NXT Performance Center workers. So they're going to get louder in some matches. And I brought up, you know, Thatcher and others in the past. But they got so loud during this match, and there was so much energy. And I went on social media during this match just to see how people were reacting to it. And it was weird because I saw at least 15 different people that don't know each other saying the same exact phrase, that the match was lit. Go back and see what I'm talking about. They just tore the house down. And of all the 5 matches tonight, Santos Escobar versus Isaiah Swerve Scott was probably the one that I probably, if I had to take a bathroom break, that would have been the match. And they just tore the house down. Isaiah Swerve Scott, you know, again, the ending of the match, he is Lone Wolf. He is a little bit underrated. I think he needs more seasoning. And I think he just needs, I personally, if you ask my honest opinion, I think Isaiah Swerve Scott and Ashante Adonis might be better utilized right now as a tag team than anything else. Because the tag team division in NXT, let's be honest, is a little bit to be desired. We don't know if